All right, welcome back. We're at the Viva World Summit here 2018 in beautiful Palm Springs, California. I've got David Coulthard here and Mark Gallagher, both Formula One. Mark, you were the chief executive, and David, a former racer for Formula One. Welcome to the event, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
So the guys just got off the stage here at the event and had a great presentation up on stage. Really interesting to see the similarities between all the companies that are here at the event and the Formula One industry. Obviously, we've had a lot of people here from the oil and gas industry, from food and beverage, and the like. But gentlemen, if you can just take a quick second and give us some information on the Formula One industry and how these same technologies apply there.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think the way we approached the presentation this morning was to give the folks in the audience a little bit of context around Formula One. And as David and I explained, we have 10 Formula One teams. Each of them is an engineering company. We create an asset that happens to be a Formula One race car.
Right.
And so we're technology businesses, and we're dealing in engineering from aerospace, from information technology, from automotive. So we give a little bit of context around that. And then I think really, over the 1 hour of the presentation, we shared the digital transformation journey that we've been on in Formula One over the last 25 years, which really coincided with David's career starting in Formula One in 1994. And I think hopefully the audience enjoyed some of those good touch points in terms of, in terms of the technology, how we manage our assets, how we get safe, efficient, reliable outcomes. That was the kind of key thrust of what we talked about.
Absolutely. And maybe you can talk a little bit, David, about just the technology shift that's happened since you entered the Formula One industry and your driving career.
Well, I think as Mark mentioned, my early career was of a test driver. So, as any sports person will know, you don't go straight into the main team. You've got to work your way up through. So I was testing and developing in Formula One from early 90s. And at that time, the technology was very much a case of data that was harvested locally within the car, and you would drive around and you would push the car to its limit, come in, stop in the pits. An engineer would start to talk to you about what your hopes and fears were for the balance of the car, whilst another data engineer would harvest that information in terms of steering input, suspension movement, throttle application, brakes, and things like that. But it was all very much in its infancy. And if we look at how technology serves us all today in the modern world, and the fantastic companies that are represented here, and supplied by Aviva ultimately, this technology today is able to harness information real time, and in many cases in modern Formula One, see an issue before the driver is even aware of it, see an issue before anyone in the grandstands who are supporting that particular team or driver and may never be aware that there's been a particular issue. And although the team are not able to, by rules of our sporting governing body, rectify those issues in the way that maybe NASA could do with the space station. But what they can do is transmit that information to the driver, and then the driver has the various technologies and tools available to him whilst driving at 200 miles an hour to make adjustments to the car. So I think that the technology journey that we've all been on, and some of the great companies that are represented here within the conference, what's so thrilling for me personally to have the opportunity to come along is, Mark has a background in management of high performance companies within Formula One. I'm just a driver, So, but what I've had the opportunity to do is to work with people like Mark, work with designers and engineers and highly motivated, skilled people that kind of as a customer to them, be able to receive this incredible customer service that gives you one of the fastest tools in the world to play with.
Right. And you talked a little bit about, the technology is one piece, but I think another big component obviously is the people and the crew that you have. Maybe you guys can talk a little bit about how extensive the team is for a Formula One team and how that all comes to fruition out on the actual racetrack.
Well, I think kind of at the conclusion of our presentation, we talked about this point that for all the complexity that's involved in Formula One from a technology point of view, it's about combining world-class technology with world-class people. And that means our own staff within our team. So in a competitive Formula One team today, you'll have anywhere between 900 and 1,000 full-time staff who design and manufacture and create the product that we race. And so when we talk about a team, it's not the team that's at the racetrack, it's the whole team of people behind the scenes who create that technology. It's also the team of people in our partner suppliers and companies. And I think talking to some of the folks here at the conference over the last 24 hours, one thing that really comes across clearly to us is that with the work Aviva does with its customers and partners, it resonates very much with our world. You know, it's about people and organizations working together to make the best of technology and to get the right outcome. And that's the trick actually within our industry. The technology is one thing, it's the people factor that's something else. And I know David, has spent his whole career recognizing it's the people factor that delivers the success for you.
Right.
Yeah, well, absolutely. This is something that I'm particularly passionate about within the industry that I've been lucky enough to call my profession. And as you know, as a presenter, you're only as good as the team of people behind the camera that make you look good. You know, you can have the best question in the world, but if the technology lets you down, it's never going to get there out to the viewers. So it's that relationship between the team element of listening to the customer, listening to the driver, and then finding solutions because they have the creative ideas to then keep ahead of the competition. And it's one of the things that I mentioned in the conference is that there's many great companies with very recognizable names that have failed ultimately, not because the name wasn't based on previous success, but they didn't keep with the energy that was necessary to bring in new people, new ideas, and to create new technologies and new solutions.
Right, really the core of innovation, right?
Yep.
Very good. And I know obviously safety and efficiency is a key element. You both touched on that up on the stage up there. Maybe you can elaborate on that. You know, I'm just looking around the room, and there's obviously all these demos set up. Downstream oil and gas, like I mentioned, food and beverage, infrastructure, smart cities. Everything really comes down to the safety and the efficiency of the asset, right? Yeah. Something that you both worked and talked about up on stage. Talk just a little bit about how many components go into your asset, being the vehicle, and how the team relies on each component.
Well, it kind of depends on how far you break all the elements of a Formula One car down, but there are probably about 8,500 components that go into creating the asset that we then have to manage through its lifetime. But to answer your question, I think some of the audience were probably surprised to hear two guys from Formula One come on stage and talk about compliance.
Right.
You know, it's not the most obvious aspect of Formula One that you want to hear about, but the compliance is very much there because we have to create and operate in a safe environment. And if you're talking about the energy sector, oil and gas, we all know safety is such an important, physical safety it's a massive importance. We all remember, the Gulf of Mexico disaster, for example, in the energy sector. You think about food and beverages, food safety, in terms of production and manufacturing. Formula One is no different. A catastrophic outcome for us can mean loss of life. So in terms of managing all of our day-to-day operations safely, it's center stage. It's right up there. It's the reason why we work in such an industry where compliance and regulation is so important. And I think that's where, in creating a digital twin, we create the capability for us to fully interrogate and manage our assets in such a way that we get a guaranteed outcome every time. And so I think that's where we're all talking the same language. It's a language of data because it helps us to make the right decisions and to get the right outcomes.
Yeah, I wish we had some of the slides up that you were showing, but as you were closing down your presentation, you were showing the speed at which the cars come into the pit, get the tires changed, get all of the aerodynamics set. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about that and how the technology has helped to just amazingly reduce that time that you're there in the pit.
Well, Mark can go in more detail because as part of the management of a Formula One team, that's something that he'd really have to sort of oversee and understand. As a driver, it's just a joy to be part of a team of people that are able to do what seems like a superhuman performance. But of course it is entirely human. It's a focus on every area of the car being presented to the pit stop, from the person coming forward with the wheel gun, how that gun is interacting with the wheel nut, you know, how the wheel will be removed, how the next wheel will be put on. It's broken down into all those individual elements. And I think it's a fantastic example of what a small team of people, what is it, 21, 22 people?
22 people, yeah.
22 people can achieve if you really want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's 22 people, it's 36 tasks, and it's hundreds of data points. If you look at all of the interactions that happen during a pit stop, there's actually a huge amount going on there. The world record today is 1.9 seconds. I think the audience were slightly taken aback. I think there are a few oil and gas industry people who would love to see facilities serviced in 1.9 seconds. They'd be really happy. They'd be really happy with that outcome. So, you know, sharing that kind of performance that we don't take it for granted in Formula One. You know, we continue to be impressed with what we see all the teams do every weekend, but it's a huge amount of fun to be able to step away from the world of Formula One, come here to Palm Springs and share with the audience at the Aviva Summit and get some good reaction from them.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you both being here today. Thanks for the presentation this morning and spending time with us here on Facebook Live.
It's our pleasure.
Definitely enjoy the rest of your time here. Hopefully you guys get some golf out. Maybe. One last question, just for the jovial suit. Who's better at parallel parking?
That would be Mark.
No, definitely.
I'm actually not a very good road car driver.
No?
My wife does most of the driving at home because, you know, I've spent my life performing above 100 miles an hour. Right. So anything below what would be the normal, safe, legal driving limit, I'm just not very good. So, you know, that's why I'm an absolute believer that there's no reason why women could not be as successful as men in this industry, and we need to promote more of them through the grassroots and give them that opportunity.
Great point.
And actually, that was one point that we picked up on is, you know, we know Aviva is supporting girls in tech.
Yes.
Through the conference, and you know, David's just announced yesterday the creation of an all-women open wheel racing series, and that's to improve the diversity in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. My sister raced karts when she was younger, and I think she was more naturally talented than I. But because the sort of focus, because I was 6 years older, the focus was kind of on me, and I started to get momentum towards a professional career. It meant that she didn't get the focus that she really deserved, and I regret that was the case. So I really believe that in terms of hand-eye coordination and making good decisions, statistically, actually, from an insurance point of view, women are better drivers than men. They have less incidents and accidents. Yeah. And you know, there's some pretty racy women out there in terms of skills and ability. So, you know, I'd like to be able to, in retirement, help support that and see if we can bring through someone to the highest level. We've seen it in various forms of American racing, with Danica Patrick, who raced in IndyCar and also NASCAR. She just recently retired, but there's no reason why it can't be across the board globally.
Very good. Well, I appreciate the work you're doing there. Thanks again for joining us, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you. Thanks.